Hello malt mates, I'm Ralphie. Welcome to the Whisky Bothy. Welcome to Ralphie Review 1069. I am reviewing as part of a series of new distilleries. This bottle here, it is a name that I know many of you are already familiar with because it has been gaining over the last few years quite a reputation for itself as a distillery not only making good whisky but making it accessible at a good relative value price, which is really quite important. This is the Ardnamurchan 10-year-old 10th anniversary edition, which came out at the end of 2024. You might be able to find it. However, being the first 10-year-old whisky from a 10-year-old distillery, there has been a lot of demand for it, bolstered by the fact that Ardnamurchan, for such a young distillery, is already developing a very mature reputation, and hence it's accelerating demand for the product. Pour a wee glass now. Give you a little bit more specifics on this bottle before I actually smell and taste it for you. This is bottled at 50%, so you're getting the inaugural 10-year-old whisky release, well, mainstream 10-year-old release, at a higher strength than you would normally get from many other bottlers. Distillery bottlers, so it's basically carrying more punch, it's carrying more weight in the delivery of the smell and the taste. It is because it says so on the label, which is always and only where this information is relevant, that it is non-chill filtered and natural colour. We also get some additional information on the front label again about the provenance of the casks used, which helps to explain the experience and the flavour that we're getting from the whisky. And on the back of the label, you're seeing increasingly these days a QR code, which is ideal for finding out more general information, not only about the distillery, but also other bottlings that they're producing. What I'm noticing about Ardnamurchan already is the diversity of themes that you're getting from the distillery signature. I'm also noticing, because it's pretty self-evident, that one reason there's a lot of interest in this distillery is that they are prioritising yield of flavour over yield of alcohol. Now, this is something that when you're an experienced whisky drinker, you really start to latch onto, because it makes a substantial difference in the calibre of the experience. Now, where's that trusty old steampunker of mine? Because I'll be needing it now to read a little bit of gold lettering on the front label. And it says this: unpeated spirit matured in ex-bourbon barrels and Paul Lenoir barriques. Okay. So there you have it. A little bit of American cask, a little bit of French and European wood. So this is going to already informing us that when we smell this and taste this, we're getting a little bit more oak and cask complexity. All in good and done. What does it smell like? By the way, just before I kind of deep dive in this, the reason I haven't reviewed it sooner is because I don't like reviewing newly released whiskies at the moment that they are released and that everybody else is reviewing them. I'd rather let it settle down, because I'm very much aware that there tends to be the risk, we'll call it the risk, of consensus fever. Now, consensus fever is when someone, the first person to post a review online, says, oh, this is banger, it's brilliant, it's great stuff, and then everybody else feels inclined to follow suit. So it's that there's a consistency in narrative and nobody feels like they're speaking out of turn. It's natural human behaviour. This is one reason why I delay these kind of reviews, so as to have the benefit of having a distance along with other reviews, so as to kind of help my perspective be a little bit more refreshing. On the nose. Yep, it's unpeated. It's softly aromatic. There is a genuine intensity of flavour and not a lot of nip of alcohol. This has been very cleanly distilled. Very well distilled, actually. They do a consistently good job at this distillery. It's primarily, I'm getting melon notes, grape notes, well, that has been matured in or finished, could say. Although they don't say how long the finish is, but if you want that information, I'm sure the distillery would provide it. They're the sort of people who do. But you're getting that French white grape wine. It's not, I wouldn't even say French, it's that white grape. I'm getting more Muscatel, to be honest, German Muscatel. But you get that slightly perfumed aromatic note. It's very pleasant, and it's only just the beginning, because when you have a prioritised flavour yield rather than alcohol yield, whiskies can start out quite confusing in the nose and the taste, because there's so much going on so rapidly in the first connect. It's one that you really need to give it a lot of time that it needs to unravel and deliver the complexity of what's going on, and therein, Maltmates, is the satisfaction. Little hint of kiwi fruit, melon, absolutely, I'm getting lots of melon, honeydew melon to be specific. Some background cereal vanilla notes, soft what you call cream toffee. But it's fairly light, it's not dominant in any way. I'm noticing the really good coat line round the inside of the glass there, with the kind of heavy beading and the kind of heavy legs as it descends inside. And to explain this, you'll get this in young whiskies which have been properly engaged with good casks, and the casks giving its oil and its previous content and everything into the liquor and assisting with the maturation process. And also when you get a thicker spirit off the stills as a result of a slightly lower alcohol yield, because it's being sacrificed for a higher flavour yield, you tend to get more barley oil coming through in the distillate. So be aware of that. It's something you find very prominent in, say, local barley editions from the likes of Springbank and Bruichladdich. A bit more in the nose before I taste it. Clean, beautifully fresh, aromatic, very soft spice. We're looking at the soft end of spice. So we're looking at cardamom, for example, a little bit of nutmeg in there, and a very, very softest of syruped ginger. But the ginger, quite restrained. Taste. Just a little drop now, not too much. You don't want to flood your palate. We're noticing the alcohol, but it's not as harsh as you would get in a lot of whiskies at 50% alcohol. This is a good indicator as to the substance of the experience you're getting and the calibre of production. As you can see already, this bottle is delivering everything you would expect from one of the top-end contemporary Scotch whisky distilleries. I'm just saying it as it is. And I can say this because I bought the bottle. Simple as that. I buy what I review. Gives me a little bit more flexibility and freedom to say what I damn well want. I'm going to add some water to this. Such is the substance, it'll certainly take the water. And I'm going to be generous about it. Yeah, it's a small pour, but I'm adding 4 millilitres of water. You immediately notice on a whisky of this quality, you're getting great viscimity. This is the viscimity. This is the combining of the water and the spirit. And I'm also noticing that it has been barrier filtered. So when they say it's not chill filtered, they really, really mean it. So a gentle roll around the glass, no violent shaking. We do not treat whisky as you would with a glass of wine. And bear in mind, an awful lot of wine snobbery involves theatre. So we're aware of that. So when you see glasses held like this, for example, and wafted about and shaken, and then the big deep huffing instead of gentle nosing, you're dealing with a showman, right? You're dealing with an impresario. Whether it be a whisky festival, a masterclass, or someone else in a whisky club, basically, they're putting on the agonies, so be aware of that. Don't join in. Back to the nose. I've given it a couple of minutes in the glass with some water. It's kind of bonding a little bit, right? So it's basically mixing. So we're getting to the post-viscimity stage, but this is a whisky that is going to really benefit from a lot of time in the glass. Not 10 minutes, as in 10 minutes in the glass for each 10 years and each year in the cask. Even after 45 minutes to an hour, you're still going to get this whisky unravelling itself and revealing the subtleties and the complexities. You will notice as time goes on, and it does take time, because this is still a young spirit. It's a spirit-driven experience. So it does take more time for the cask influence to exert itself and to deliver the complexity of the wood engagement. So it's something else to be aware of. I mean, if whisky was easy, everybody would drink it and sip it slowly instead of knocking it back. When you go to the supermarket or in your bar, look at the people when they're drinking whisky. They knock it back. The glass is gone in 10 minutes. They've only had a small section of the experience. And this is why it's perfectly reasonable to buy your generic, mass-produced, passive consumer whiskies if you're just going to neck it. But the reason we buy this is because we want to spend time with it. We value the friendship, the calibre of the engagement. Now, I know I'm probably starting to sound a little bit pretentious, but I'm not particularly bothered and I don't particularly care. I am just simply delivering my experience to help you with yours. If you give this more time, you'll get more out of the glass. End of. Let's get back to the glass now. On the nose. Softer on the nose. Gentle, little bit soft apricot, mildest apricot. We're almost getting a peach nose, but not quite. There's some pineapple in the background and a little bit of soft, creamy, confectionery banana notes. Restrained, suggested, not imposed. On the taste, just hold it on your tongue. The warmth and the kicks coming out now. Adding that water brings out the gingeriness, is gaining more momentum. Beautiful, languid sultana notes, aromatic, almost perfumed. This is basically being delivered by the good quality Lanois Barrique cask. So far so good. It's very, very decent. It is delivering very good quality at a relatively young age at what in fact has been a very good value price. And I've got to mention this in passing. This isn't a distillery that is trying to trade heavily on a reputation that it thinks it's got by jacking up and ultra pricing. It's not doing that. Some of their whisky versions are expensive, but many are in fact representing very good value, which is why I'm more than happy to buy a bottle and review it for you. It's the logic. Back to the taste, because the first taste, you're getting your bearings. It's when you come back for the second taste and the third taste, you gradually become more aware, because your palate is now getting conditioned and is better able to differentiate what's going on. absolutely unpeated. It's the light side. The light, soft, fruity, and I'm coming back to perfumed again. There is the taste of lily, of some orchid in here. Even a slight hint of creamy rose otto, which is basically rose water. It's not super complicated, but it has depth. The quality of casks is great, but it's still a young whisky. It's 10 years old. And you're getting a really good, clear signature of Ardnamurchan. And I really don't want to add too much to that, except to say that it's a damn good whisky, so I recommend you buy a bottle. Now, if you go out and you find that it's no longer available due to demand, just look at the other options. Check general reviews, because I've never tasted a bad Ardnamurchan yet. And frankly, of all the people I speak to in my travels, I haven't heard anybody else say a bad word about it. And there's a sort of simple reason for this, maltmates. This is a distillery that takes its business seriously and doesn't think it can just slip in the occasional bad bottlings just to clear out a bit of surplus stock that's not going anywhere. There are some distilleries who obviously have that temptation, and I've certainly noticed it in the past, although in the interests of consideration, I'm not going to kind of name and shame them. But it just makes us, as we gain our personal experience, we have to become a more cautious and careful buyer. That's the skill of success. And this is why social media collectively is now selling and encouraging more quality whisky sales. And in fact, steering a whole calibre of conversation away from mass-produced whisky to the artisanal whisky. Just like happened in beer, just like's been happening in wine, but in particular in beer, with the emergence of all these craft breweries who are happy to talk about the yeast varieties and the hop varieties in a way that the chemical beer companies, particularly of the 1970s, really didn't want to have much of a conversation about. And so it's distilleries like Ardnamurchan, they get their toehold in the market by knowing their customer, knowing what's actually happening in the real world around them, and then focusing and delivering a product to the real world. Then they get the sales. It's really not rocket science, it's really not. But I do notice some other distilleries at times seem to struggle with just being aware of this. Perhaps they should pay a visit to Ardnamurchan, spend a day there. It would surprise you at how many distilleries and distillery managers never visit other distilleries. It would shock you. Do you know why? Because they're too busy. The oak is now coming through. It's a lovely, creamy, slightly carbonic oak. Very much what you would expect from a French barrique, because they're using European sourced oak. So you get that oak complex because it's complementing and it's overlaying the original ex-bourbon cask using primarily, exclusively American oak. The arrival is growing. The development is getting drier, almost slightly rind or tartish on the palate. The finish is stretching, soft, creamy, interesting, complex, and very rewarding. What will I give this for a malt mark? Yep, we're at that time already. We're dishing out the marks. I'd say young distillery, inaugural 10-year-old, very competent, well done Ardnamurchan, 83 out of 100. And there you have it. Now, if you want to pop back again for my next review, 1069 Extras, I will be talking and focusing on yield. I'll be telling you what you need to know about yield, specifically the yield of spirit alcohol from the grain. And it's very, very important to know this, because it's something we don't even think about when we start with whisky. But when we're looking for an explanation as to why we prefer some whiskies over other whiskies and why we see a pattern emerging, then this is where we really need to know these facts. Even if they're a Ralphie opinion. Bye-bye.